What's up, you guys? Gonna answer a bunch of questions here, probably 30 of them on my phone. Before we get started, some of them I consider very important for a lot of people, and some of them I consider what I would call majoring in the minors, or like a business coaching client of mine, John Walters, wrote an article called 98.2, which we'll link down below, which is basically that if you take care of the 98% of easy stuff, rather than, maybe I mixed those up, but what he's basically saying is that too many people focus on things that don't matter, like very, very detailed things, where 98% of your progress is going to come from other areas. And then part of it is just that I don't know, some of these questions are very detailed and I don't know the answer. If someone asks me how to take their flat bench press from 345 to 375, you know what I'm going to say? I don't know, guy. I can't even do 345, so how am I going to tell you how to do 375? When I don't know, I'm going to say I don't know. So, with that intro, let's do it. How long can you do the same workout, or when should you switch it up? It depends what you're doing. For a lot of my coaching clients, I run 4-week phases for many reasons. For like people more on the beginner side, it makes sense to change workouts a little more frequently to like keep psychological, mental adherence there, keep things fun, keep it energized. Is it necessary to change programs every 4 weeks? No, absolutely not. Like, your muscles aren't getting confused, and in some situations, particularly if you're a little bit more advanced or an intermediate, by changing workouts every 4 weeks, what you're actually doing is preventing your ability to track strength progress, because you're moving in and out key lifts, you're just not spending enough time. It also takes a few weeks to get accustomed to a training program, get used to it. Maybe there's moves you're unfamiliar with. You're going to get technically better at a lift over time. So if you only get to do it 4 times in 4 weeks, or maybe 8 times in 2 weeks, depending on the training split. So what is optimal? Was that the question? How long can you go? I've been on a variation of the Greek God program with 2 deloads for almost 6 months. Now, I've switched up some of my accessory work. I've done things like switched the grip on overhead pulling, switched overhead pulling movements. By doing the same type of movement, like a pull-up or a chin-up or a neutral grip chin-up, what you're doing is you're stressing your joints in a different way. Like, joint stress isn't a good thing, right? Over time, that's going to lead to issues. So by keeping the movement pattern the same but doing a different exercise, what you're doing is you're giving your joints, you're giving your body a break, you're going to decrease risk of injury. But in general, 12 weeks, jump out early. If it really isn't going well, keep going. If you're making strength gains, if you're making progress, that's my answer. When is high intensity interval training necessary or beneficial? When should cardio be used? So I actually don't have a preference as to whether you do high intensity interval training or low intensity steady state cardio. They both can be effective. If we're going to compile all of the cardio studies in which leads to faster fat loss for essentially the same amount of effort, like a 25-minute HIIT session versus a 45 or 60-minute LISS session, you see marginally faster progress doing high intensity interval training. But if you hate bike sprints, like I hate bike sprints, or kettlebell circuits, and you would rather put an audiobook on and walk or do the Stairmaster for 45 or 60 minutes, are you giving away crazy amounts of progress compared to doing that same total intensity in a high intensity interval workout? No, you're not. And I don't even want to take a shot at quantifying it, because I would just be guessing. I'm fine with you doing either type of cardio. When should you do cardio? Supplementary to diet to create a larger deficit. If you like cardio, you should do cardio. If cardio gives you mental gains, you should do cardio. If you have hit a point where you're not doing cardio or doing very little and begin to stall out, and you don't want to take calories lower, but you want to keep losing fat, then adding cardio, either HIIT or LISS, probably makes sense. So supplementary to diet to create faster progress. Do you rest when sick? I'm going to answer this question exactly how it's asked, and if you watch my vlogs, no, I do not rest when sick. I let work stuff fall apart. I let relationships fall apart. I'll do anything to preserve the 57 minutes a day where I'm in the weight room. I'll take 600 milligrams of caffeine right before my workout. to hit PRs and delay the fact that, like, delay recovery because right now I'm so into my own training? I know what you're really asking. Depending on how sick you are, go by how you feel. When you're exerting yourself to maximal intensity, like I just described, like I did a month ago when I had the flu, you're preventing faster recovery. So you can get in there and do a light session, do a little bit of cardio, do like a deload style workout, do less volume, do less total weight, or skip it completely, right? It's one workout or it's two workouts we're talking about. Going either way, unless you do what I did, if you're an idiot like me, isn't going to hurt you. If I miss a workout, which day should I start on if I know I won't be able to make up one of the workouts? Chest or biceps. If you have to miss a workout, you miss leg day. During muscle building phases, what surplus do you recommend in general? More or less aggressive? In what situations? Depends what you're comfortable with. If you are someone who just got abs for the first time and you want to lean bulk and you really don't want to give up those abs, I would suggest being in a slight deficit on rest days and a slight surplus or slight to moderate surplus on training days. If you're someone who wants to build as much muscle as possible at all costs and you're okay with adding some body fat, I still wouldn't like dirty bulk, not count, eat 8,000 calories a day and gain weight at a 4-to-1 fat to muscle ratio, because that would just be suboptimal to your physique development. And like the increased rate of muscle gain from the huge surplus doesn't compensate for the detrimental effects of gaining the fat along the way, which is going to effectively cut short the time you get to spend in a surplus, because you're going to have to spend more time in a deficit to get back to where you were. It's really personal preference, and I would err on the side of continuing to track, and maybe while not being as meticulous as if you're chasing abs, still trying to make real progress. Is it okay to sometimes train muscles that are still a little bit sore from the previous workout? Yeah, it depends on how your program's set up. It depends on many factors. Like if you're in the first week of a new program, and you do like day A, day B, day A, you're going to be sore on day A again, training the same muscles that you trained 4 or 5 days ago. But when you're on week 5 or week 6 of that program, like the DOMs aren't going to be there because it's not a new program. So I don't have a science answer to give you here, like as to soreness and how related any type of local soreness is to recovery, but it depends on your program. If you're doing super high volume and like a specialization program for 4 or 6 weeks, really trying to grow a certain muscle, then you're probably going to be sore pretty often, again, especially for those first few weeks. But I'm okay with training muscles that are sore. It's like 48 to 72 hours it takes to recover, but like it depends on volume, right? If I do 3 sets at 85% intensity of a muscle, of a big muscle, versus 12 sets and just blast them and go to failure for all 12 sets, like the recovery time is going to be different. Calves. How much of their size growth is really determined by genetics, and what is the best way to work them? So those who I have seen make very impressive calf gains have done so by focusing on time under tension with the calves, like eccentric, concentric, pause at the top, pause at the bottom movements. I don't very recently I started training my calves, but I don't train my calves. I don't really care about growing them that much. If you throw heavy weight on the bar and you do sets of like 6 to 8 calf raises, they're going to grow doing that too, right? Like the whole strength versus hypertrophy rep range is something that has been debated for a very, very long time by the smartest people in the industry, and both 4 to 6 rep range, longer rest times, heavier weight, and 8 to 12 and 12 to 15, like both have led to progress if you're implementing progressive overload, if you're trying to get stronger in whatever rep range, workout over workout or week over week. If your diet's on point, if you're resting and you're recovering, if you're doing the important things, then you're going to make progress regardless. Most of my programs I have work in both, like in all rep ranges, because they support each other. You can get bigger and stronger in the 4 to 6 range, and that you can add size and potentially even assist in your strength on the bigger lifts in the hypertrophy rep ranges. But calves, how much is genetic and how much isn't, I don't know. I know that people who spent many, many years severely obese generally have a lot of calf muscle. I know some people, like a lot of Asians, surprisingly, that just have huge calves. But yeah, I have no idea, genetics-wise. I didn't get them though. I didn't win the lottery. My bicep to calf ratios. How do I go about it if I want to bring my upper chest up to the level of my lower chest? Anything you like besides incline presses. Get stronger at your incline bench press and your upper chest is going to grow. I like a high incline squeeze press for a direct upper chest piece of accessory work. Just make sure your shoulder blades are retracted and tucked, because on a squeeze press, if you're not focused on pulling your shoulder blades back, you're going to get a lot of anterior delts stealing some of your chest gains, which, if you want big shoulders, might not be the worst thing. How can I make the muscles look more full through diet? As in drink a lot of water, eat XYZ. I assume you mean in the short run, because I don't think it makes a lot of sense to design a longer run philosophy around how your muscles look in the short run. But depleting glycogen, so going low carb for several days, and then loading glycogen and drinking some water, and then doing a ton of volume is going to give you an insane pump. Like the blood, the water, the carbs, just that's how you're going to have big muscles for the next 30 minutes. And carbs in general are going to leave you looking more full than a low carb diet, which is going to leave you looking more flat. Cycles of cutting and bulking, so there are no real rules as to when to switch between them. Obviously, muscle building routines need their time to work, but is it perfectly possible to just throw in 3 weeks of fat loss in between? So I assume you're referring to like mini cuts throughout a bulk. I generally don't have clients do those, but you can if you want to. It's a strategy. It's almost like an extended form of recomposition, right? Where you're at maintenance in a week, but your surplus training day, deficit rest day, surplus training day, deficit rest day. And in my experience coaching, and on myself as well, when doing recomposition over, say, a 9-month period versus a 5.5-month bulk and a 3.5-month cut, you're going to see greater total body composition progress by breaking them out than by trying to do recomposition. Now, that being said, this like mini cut idea where I don't know if you would go 3 weeks of bulking or 6 weeks of bulking and then 3 weeks of cutting and alternate those throughout. Yeah, you can. You just gain momentum on a bulk, right? Like when you're doing it and when you're sticking with it and when you're feeling good and when you're eating a lot of food and you're tracking your calories and you're not in too big of a surplus, like you get rolling. And whether that's actually physiological or whether that's just mental, like being able to get stronger, meaning you're getting bigger in a surplus over time, it's beneficial to progress. If you want to throw the 3-week mini cut in there, like Gary right now is like mentally struggling with Thanksgiving, and we've been bulking for 4 months. It's like, Mike, I can't go 3 more months on this bulk. Like I feel too much here. I feel too fat. I want to, I really feel it. I want to not eat for 10 days. And I was like, okay, well, we're not going to not eat for 10 days, but yes, we can throw a little mini cut in here to get you back where you're comfortable. So if it's for body image or like psychological stuff, awesome, do it. But for optimal progress, probably makes more sense just to bulk and then cut. What I think of pre and post-workout nutrition is for strength, pre-workout nutrition doesn't matter. If you're gonna eat some carbs plus protein pre-workout, do it. If you're going to go into a workout fasted, have 10 grams of branched chain amino acids to prevent catabolism and muscle loss during your workout. But either of those outside of like personal preference and maybe psychological stuff, but the studies where it's fasted versus non-fasted strength training for strength, there isn't a difference. If you're doing a lot of volume, it probably makes sense to have some protein plus carbs pre-workout. If you are training multiple times per day, it's going to make sense to not train, keep fasting, train. Like, it's going to make sense to eat probably before and after both workouts. As far as post-workout nutrition goes, having protein plus carb, really protein, but adding carbohydrates in there for glycogen, restoring glycogen, and like slightly more elevated insulin levels than just protein. Like, whey protein boosts insulin a lot, and you get another, X% bump from having carbs as well, but that's beneficial post-workout. Now, if you train fasted, timing of post-workout nutrition matters. Like, getting that protein and carbs in your body right after your workout or 5 minutes after your workout versus doing it 90 minutes after does make a difference. If you are not trained fasted, the timing of post-workout nutrition is far less important. Where do I actually measure my waist ratio? At the belly button, above, somewhere else. Because he wants to calculate his shoulder to waist ratio. I have clients take belly button 2 inches above, 2 inches below, because I like multiple data points there. It also, like, if you're just taking one measurement in one spot, variance is going to be greater. By increasing the number of places, like increasing the number of measurements we take each week, we're decreasing variance, which is just going to give me more reliable data over time. But like the shoulder to waist, is that the Adonis ratio? Is that what that's called? I've never done that measurement or thought or cared about that measurement. When does it make sense to use reverse pyramid training instead of standard progression? I really like RPT in a calorie deficit because it is hard to maintain intensity on straight sets when you're in a deficit, when cortisol levels are high, when energy levels are down, when glycogen levels are down. Like, when you're just dragging on, it's hard to do 3 or 4 or 5 consecutive sets at the same weight and pick a weight where you can actually do the 5th set, right? You're balancing the first set being a joke, and then like by the end of your 4th and 5th sets, it's pretty hard, versus your first set was, wow, that was hard, and then you have to drop weight on your 3rd or 4th or 5th sets or all of those sets. RPT style training, very intense. Bringing weight down each set allows you to do the least and get the most out of it. In a calorie surplus, generally I have, and in that RPT, that's just like 1 or maybe 2 lifts a day. Your accessory work should be in the straight set rep ranges, or straight sets, like in the 8 to 15 rep range. Just because doing your strength work and your accessory work, all RPT, all close to failure, like you're going to be doing 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 sets of just crushing yourself. You're just not going to be able to recover. In a calorie surplus, either's fine. I'm doing RPT work plus accessory work in a surplus right now. This is actually the first time I've ever done that, and it seems to be working well. I'm getting stronger. Strength is correlated with more muscle. You can also, like plenty of people do, including myself in the past, and have done straight sets in a surplus and seeing great progress too. Again, this is kind of I'm not picking on you, bro, but I have seen many people ask very detailed questions as a way to procrastinate doing the 4 things that make up 98% of what matters. Rest and recover enough, like really fucking bring it in the gym, keep your calories and your macros on point, and get adequate fiber and micronutrients and fruits and vegetables, etc. Nutrition, bring it in the gym, recover. So 3 things, not even 4. How come you increase calories so slow when reverse dieting? What are we going to? Maintenance calories. So I very often employ reverse dieting with coaching clients because, not because it's physiologically necessary, but because for many of my coaching clients, this is the first time in a long time that they've gotten as lean as they are, and they did it by tracking macronutrients, by doing those 3 things over time. By not reverse dieting, what's happening is, I shouldn't say that. You can not reverse diet, go back to maintenance, and keep tracking for like 4 or 8 weeks, and like be very disciplined and be absolutely fine. The two reasons I don't love it are, one, you can't always properly estimate maintenance, right? Your calorie maintenance isn't just 15 times body weight. You may have been in a deficit for 12 or 16 or 27 weeks, and your BMR is down, your total calorie expenditure is down, and your maintenance isn't what it was when we started, and we don't exactly know what it is. By reverse dieting, we slowly, like we could reverse diet over 3 or 4 weeks and take relatively aggressive jumps, but what it's gonna do is it's not gonna let us overshoot that and have you be like, oh shit, you know, I gained 2.5 pounds of fat in these 3 weeks because I thought this was my maintenance, but really my BMR and my TDE was just so beaten, my NEAT was down because I was in a deficit for so long and so stressed and my hormones were wonky, etc. So that's one reason, and two is there's something to it mentally. I don't know how to articulate this exactly, but it's like when you reverse diet, you're still following a program. It's almost like counting calories and macronutrients when you're bulking. It's like, oh, now I'm bulking, I can do whatever the hell I want. It's like, no, you can't. You need to be like similarly almost as meticulous as when you're losing fat. Going back to maintenance feels like, good, I did it, it's over, I accomplished it, I'm back at maintenance. Reverse dieting's like, shucks, my coach is still making me track for another 4 or 6 or 8 weeks, and so I better keep doing this. And you're still in a deficit for many of those weeks. Often stress levels go down, water weight drops when that happens, you're still in a deficit, so you're still losing fat. So a lot of people continue to lose a couple extra pounds during the reverse diet, which is a nice benefit for many people. Over what period of time? As quickly as 3 weeks and as long as 10 weeks. Lane Norton is or has done some research on reverse dieting and its effect on non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and basically the effect of slowly increasing calories and primarily carbohydrates and how that impacts our total daily energy expenditure, primarily through that fourth component of metabolism, that like fidgeting, that non-exercise activity movements. And so there's nothing like stamped in the examine.com PubMed Bible of the fitness industry that says reverse dieting does this and is beneficial and is better than going to maintenance if you know what your maintenance is. But there is evidence that says that it might. I feel like I'm coming in hot on a lot of these answers, and I hope that's not the vibe you guys are getting. Like, all right, what are the strategic differences between lower reps like 4 to 6 versus higher reps 12 to 15? What is the benefit of each? We kind of talked about this. You're going to get traditionally 4 to 6 means strength, and 12 to 15 means hypertrophy or muscle growth. It's kind of 8 to 12 means hypertrophy. 12 to 25 means muscle endurance. But like doing some crazy 25 rep sets in a surplus is going to help with hypertrophy. They all matter. Work in all of the rep ranges. That's when I preface this with there's going to be some short answers, like just do it all. Why would someone want to do one over the other? If you really, if you're a girl and you really, really, really do not want to build muscle, no, that still doesn't make sense, because then just be in a calorie deficit, because then you can work in 4 to 6 or 8 to 12 rep range, and I'm not going to say you're not going to build any muscle, but you're going to build very little muscle. You're going to build a little bit of muscle if you're a beginner, but outside of that, it's not going to be like noticeable Hulk muscle. It seems that reps